Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bluddworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video is another look back at the Best of Dragon magazine. This is going to be Volume 2. So this is going to be an ongoing series of at least 5 videos that I'm doing. So I have each of the best ofs of Dragon magazine that I was fortunate enough to find on eBay as a bundle for a fairly reasonable price of $75 for all 5 books. And they're in really, really good condition. So I will be showing that off. Actually, I'll do that right now. So here is my volume 2. And as you can see, it's in really good condition for a magazine that was printed probably in, let's see where they say it here, 1981. All right, so, and it's nice and it's clean and crisp on the inside and jam-packed with a lot of content. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the actual content of this particular issue, and I'm going to use a PDF that I found online in order to do that. As a matter of fact, the PDF is not even as good quality as the physical copy that I have here. It's just that I can't project certain magazine-sized materials, you know, using the camera that I have for my desktop. It kind of crunches it and, you know, just distorts it to a point that I just don't like the way it looks. So let's get right into the PDF. And as I said, the PDF that I do have is not even as good quality as the magazine. But let's go right into it. So let me shrink this down a little bit as well. Let's see. All right. So it begins off with an advertisement for Oriental Adventures. And again, this is pretty surprising because this volume was done in 1981 and Oriental Adventures wasn't released until 1985. So this is really a fast-forward projection of, you know, of what is yet to come in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. So we have the Best of Dragon magazine in November 1981. And we go right to one of the first articles that I found really interesting was on NPCs and old favorites, and they make the claim here that, you know, NPCs, just the concept of non-player characters, was a first in Dungeons and Dragons. And that they're meant to be the DM's supporting cast, all right? And NPCs do not have to conform to the same game structures that that PCs do, all right? And that was another thing that they were going into, and so they're going to unroll a few NPCs that were featured in the first 36 issues of Dragon magazine. And the first, which I found really, really interesting, and this is a real flashback for me because I you know, obviously I don't remember these articles going back 41 years. So here we have the Anti-Paladin, and at first glance, if you just look at the title, you're probably thinking, well, is that just an evil paladin? No, this is a totally different class than just being an evil paladin. And as I'm reading through it, there's a lot of interesting stuff here that they have. So they have a different attributes. Way of determining what their attributes are. They go through and they talk about their hit points and such, which are, you know, not let's see if they roll hit points as a fighter. Let's see. Actually, I'm not quite seeing it. Hit dice. Yeah, I'm not seeing where they say what hit dice they actually have. I think it might even just assign hit points to them as you wish, but they go through some of the skills that they have. So they have a +2 bonus on all saving throws. They have immunity to disease. Furthermore, Anti-Paladin is a carrier with the ability to transmit disease of his choice to a character of his choice by touch alone. They have a laying on hands, which is once a day. The Anti-Paladin may cause wounds in others or cure damage to himself, giving or healing 2 hit points of damage for each level of experience acquired. Part 2 of that is above he must do this by touch alone. Okay. They have protection for of good or from good that extends in a 10-foot radius. They have the Thieves' Backstabbing ability. They receive the +4 bonus to hit with double damage if he does hit whenever attacking a victim from behind. They have the ability to use poisons, and this is something that levels up along with it. So just the type of poison that they can use increases as their level increases. And I actually spend a lot of time on the type of poison and the reasons why they use poisons and how they want to use poisons. So it's supposed to be like their use of poisons is like an elegant art form, as it's described in the guts of this portion of the article. At 3rd level and above, they have they affect the undead, devils, and demons as if they were an evil cleric, and that of course scales up with level as well. So a 5th level anti-paladin acts as a 3rd level evil cleric, and so on. At 4th level and above, the anti-paladin have acquired a special warhorse referred to on table 3, usually, and they go through the stats and everything, but it could actually be a nightmare as well. So here they have their experience levels, and then this is the type of poisons that they could potentially use and their effectiveness of using those poisons at that point. Experience levels, so they have their, just like anything else, so their horse is a 5% chance of, gaining a horse, all the way up to 55% chance. Unholy Sword, they have a chance of having it. Human Retainers, interesting, higher at lower level. I haven't really dug into this all that much. Non-human retainers, freeholds, table of retainers, let's see, non-human retainers, I didn't see the mounts table yet. These are their spell abilities. Just a lot of detail into an NPC class. So it's, and I'm assuming that you could play it as a playable class as well, but they spent a lot of time there. So this is your prelude to Oriental Adventures, and October 1976, Samurai, created by Mike Childers, and then modified by Jeff Kay. And I won't spend as much time dealing with the Samurai as I did with the Anti-Paladin, because you have Oriental Adventures that you can go to and take a look at for this as well. Healers, when I took a look at healers, and this is something that I've often thought about, NPC healers would not necessarily be clerics, but maybe a combination of an herbalist and a, maybe having some magic ability, some alchemist ability and such. Here, they're looking at, like just pure healing and detecting. As a first level, all they have is detection abilities. They don't actually gain the ability to heal until they can use second level spells. All right, and no, I'm sorry, not even second level spells. They need to wait until third level, which I find kind of odd. I think that they were kind of missing the Cure Light Wounds earlier on in this, spell listing here. I mean, I would have done it in place of either haste or invisibility, which doesn't quite make sense for a healer not to have Cure Light Wounds at that point. The Berserker, which would ultimately become like the Barbarian class, I'm guessing. This by John Pickens. I didn't spend very much time at all looking at this. Scribes. Now, I did use this back in the day, so I know that this is a really interesting thing, and I like to use Scribes for some of my campaigns where the player characters might want to hire an expert hireling for a variety of reasons, and Scribes, I've used them in the past. They also can double, as being very good forgers. The Ninja, once again, 1978. A good 7 years before Oriental Adventures was released. We have an advertisement for the Temple of Elemental Evil. The Improved Ninja, 1979, by Sheldon Price. So here we have the Sorcerer Scroll. And let's see if I remember what this is basically talking about. I think Gary Gygax was talking about basically the influences on Dungeons and Dragons at this point. The relationship, a whole and its parts. And there was one section in here that just really resonated with, so it's kind of talking about the base of the state of the game and where it was going, and to try to allay some fears, like they're talking about the new basic box set that was released in 1978. So I'm guessing that's possibly the Moldvay box set, the magenta box set, and what does that relate to the upcoming Advanced Dungeons and Dragons? And he's just trying to explain that they could run on parallel tracks, at least for a while. And we know that they did run on parallel tracks for a little bit, but as a gamer at that time frame, I can pretty much tell you that that's not the way how I believe most of us transitioned. Like, we didn't continue playing D&D in my group, and probably many groups. We shifted around 78, well, 79-ish or possibly 80. We shifted from playing basic D&D to playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons once it was released. I know the first box set I bought was the magenta box set, the Moldvay box set. The first I probably played was Holmes Edition, but come 1979-ish, we were solely playing, advanced Dungeons and Dragons at that point. Article about talking about the scale difference between indoors and outdoors. Realism versus game logic. So yeah, just another one of those like really kind of deep conversations about the nature of the game and what the game is meant to be. And he goes into here saying, gaming is a form of play. Games are usually for diversion or amusement, although sometimes they are played for stake. I'm reading right in here, and prizes. They are typically contests. Fun is a synonym for game. To my mind, a game which provides ample fun and enjoyment is good. And if it brings endless hours of amusement and diversion, it is proportionately better. This view is held in common with most D&D enthusiasts, but there are those vociferous few who seem to find that the principal enjoyment in attacking rather than playing the games. Sounds like Twitter. The uniform element amongst these individuals is a complete failure to grasp the simple fact that D&D game is a game. This is something that I have been saying and harping on over the last couple of months as I dipped in a little bit more into Twitter, and here we have Gary Gygax saying it in 1978, and it still rings true today. You have a whole bunch of people who just do not understand and recognize that Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing game is a game. All right, it has the game elements that are important. It's not just role-playing, but the game elements that make it a conflict. All right, and it's not a conflict between the DM and the players. It's the conflict between what the players are trying to do and the outcomes of that. That's where the conflict really comes into play. And so that's something that he's talking about, where, you know, they're forgetting that it is a game. Really, really good article. I could probably spend a whole video on just that article, and I might very well do that. What the game is and where we're going, so he'll give another idea of kind of the direction of Dungeons and Dragons. Much about melee. Maybe too much emphasis on hacking and slashing, which, believe it or not, like Gary Gygax was actually very much opposed to that, that idea of the, you know, the murder hobo, you know, just fight and kill everything in your path. It was touched upon. Actually, I'm going to switch views here for a second. That idea that Dungeons and Dragons is not meant to be something that is just you know, just a role play or just a hack and slash, you know, murder hobo system, goes all the way back to, you know, Gary Gygax's you know, comments throughout this particular series of articles that he has in here. But it was also something that James Ward said on a recent video that he did with Inappropriate Characters. He made an appearance on Inappropriate Characters, and I will link that in the comments below, because that's an incredible watch through if you sit down and listen to the things that he's saying. But what he mentioned, and he was putting this in the terms of in the terms of losing the alignment system, which is a whole other issue I could bring up in another video as well. But the game was meant to be dangerous, and you were meant as a player to try to think of ways to avoid combat when it wasn't necessary, and not just try to, you know, hack and slash your way through things. The game was designed to be much too dangerous to actually do that. I mean, if you imagine if you're playing the game out and you're invading a kobold lair, all right, and kobolds, you know, one-on-one are no match for your typical PC, but when you're going into their lair, you know, the DM is not really doing the game system any kind of justice, and not doing the players any kind of favors by creating scenarios where they're only fighting these kobolds, you know, 2 or 3 at a time, or even, you know, half a dozen at a time. At some point while they're invading that lair, the player characters should be presented with an impossible fight if they choose to engage in it. You know, if you have 5 or 6, you know, 5 or 6 characters in the group, and suddenly they're beset by, you know, the collective defenses of a kobold lair, and now they're facing 50 kobolds, they should have a very difficult time surviving that engagement. They should actually probably just look at the numbers, and after the magic user has casted his or her, you know, possible sleep spell, they better hightail it out of there, because they're not going to outlast that number of even if they, as a DM, I would have them, even if not being able to engage them in melee combat, I would have those kobolds collectively just try to grapple, just try to drag them down. All right, which is a much easier task than trying to hit very specific. You know, it just, the system's designed for the player characters to occasionally come across a scenario that their best choice is to turn and run. All right, and that gets lost, I think, in later editions. And that's why the earlier editions are oftentimes looked at somewhat incorrectly, that it's like a misunderstanding of why they're more dangerous. They're more dangerous for the purpose of making the players think more, you know, think through what their actions are more so. And as I said, James Ward talks about that in that video, and you know, he says it much more eloquently than I am. So I would definitely pay attention to that video and just that idea. All right, let's go back to where we left off. Characters and social classes. And here, once again, I mean, there's a chart here where the chances, there's like a 70% chance that your character is a commoner. Here it is. A 75% chance the character is of common background. From 76 to 95, the character is an aristocrat. From 96 to 100, the character is of upper class background. All right, so in most cases, your player character is going to be, by a very wide margin, 1 to 75, it's going to be of common background. Looking back onto the future, there's a lot of these, like looking forward, looking backwards at, you know, just where the game was going. Are you suffering from tableitis? This terrifying disease can strike Dungeon Master and player alike. Need a table quickly? Can't find it? on the old DM screen, well, will help is on the way. The new improved Dungeon Master's screen is a must for every player. All the important tables, including 2 screens, one for the DMs and one for the players, and so on. And that was actually a very recent acquisition of mine. And you know what? Here we go. So, and there we have it. Here's the player's reference screen, and then the player's reference screen, and then the DM screen as well. So let's go right back into this here. As you can see, I mean, there's just so much in this one volume of a Best of Dragon magazine. Evil Law versus Chaos. Definitely probably tear apart this one in a separate video. The Half Ogre. Books are books, games are games. I haven't read this article yet, so. Make Believe Magic. I haven't read that far through this one yet. I've been just picking articles that jumped out. Good Isn't Stupid, Paladins and Rangers. So often we'll hear, like, chaotic evil or chaotic neutral isn't chaotic stupid. Here they're talking about lawful good, and possibly chaotic good are not stupid alignments either. Monsters and Miscellany. The Theory of the Use of Gates. Inns and Taverns. There's some nice like food charts and just how to flesh out an inn. And that was something that I saw in the volume 1-2 revised, was that they give a lot of context to, like, the world as you're traveling through it. So just a lot of layers of detail and such. I mean, I haven't seen, like, lobster on the menu in a lot of places. Shark, fried snake and such, frog's legs. So just a lot of different menu items and everything here. Good Evening by the late great Leonard Lakofka. This is about various types of vampires. Really, really interesting here. What I found was, let's go and see Summoning and Charming. They talk about different levels of vampires, but here they go into varieties. And this is by R.P. Smith. So you have the African variety of vampires. You have the Greek, you have the Crete and Rhodes, you have the Brazilian, you have the Assyrian, you have the Bosnian Herzegovina vampire differences. So they're just going through various characteristics and types of vampires. Serbia, Saxony, Philippines, Bulgaria, China, Serbia, Portugal, Romania. Just a whole big variety of different flavors of, cultural flavors for vampires that you can include in your game. Some might say that's very, very inclusive. They go into lycanthropes. Blueprint of a Lich. I never know how to pronounce that. They don't spend too much time on this article. Pretty short. just going through, I guess, the preparation of the body and such. Pretty cool. Tesseracts. The Politics of Hell by Alexander von Thorn. And this might have informed, I mean, there's a later Dragon magazine that deals with the, you know, the 9 hells. I actually did a video quite a while ago revealing that. That was one of my favorite articles in Dragon magazine, and one that we actually used to a good amount. Became part of our ongoing campaign to a certain extent. Not that we ever really traveled to the hells, but there was a lot of connections. I think we only traveled to 2 planes of the 9 hells, and just very briefly before we fled. So poisons, and this relates back to the earlier article with the anti-paladin. So now you have a description of all of those poison types and their potency and their, you know, types and how they work, antidotes possible for them. A whole section on pole arms by Gary Gygax. And the upcoming Unearthed Arcana. So another advertisement for something coming up, their battle system as well. And so there you have it. It's starting to get dark here. So it's starting to become a thunderstorm on its way. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If any of those articles you want me to really delve into and do an individual video for that particular article after I go through this series of all 5 best of, I will certainly revisit some of those articles and some of those issues that came up. I could certainly see myself doing one on you know, good versus evil and how it's, you know, meant to be looked at. Certainly want to do a response to some of the things that James Ward said in that other video from Inappropriate Characters, which again I can't stress enough. That's something really you should be viewing. And you know, other than that, I hope you'll have a great rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Leave your questions and comments in the comments section. If you hadn't subscribed, please consider subscribing and share this video out there. And I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. Very, very shortly, I'm going to start a new campaign. I'm actually going to be looking for some players to both play test a world setting that I've been writing for a while, and also an adventure which is near complete, and then go forward with continuing to play that campaign for some time, probably carrying me through the summertime, at least I'm hoping so, to get about 12 to 16 weeks out of it. So once again, thanks for joining. Have a great rest of your day. Hopefully your weather is better than mine is about to get. And I will see you again in a couple of days with a new video. Take care.